All right, guys, I have something really great for you today. I'm super excited. I have a book to read to you. Today, we're going to talk about, or this week, we're going to talk about story elements. And story elements, and we'll talk about this in just a minute, but it's the setting, the characters, the problem solution, the plot of the story. And this is what we're going to talk about today, okay? Or this week, actually. The story you're going to read is called Yoon and the Jade Bracelet, and it's in your reading book. You can find it online, or if you have a reading book at home, which I know some of you do, you can find it there. But I have a story I'm going to read to you, and maybe you've heard of him before, but these are one of my favorite books. It's called, you ready? Walter the Farting Dog, Banned from the Beach. Have you guys ever heard of Walter? He's awesome. I have tons of Walter books. Here we go. And the author is William Conswickle, Glenn Murray, and Elizabeth Gundy, illustrated by Audrey Coleman. And they dedicated this book, there's Walter, they dedicated this book for everyone who's ever felt misjudged or misunderstood. Mr. and Mrs. Crab were having a ton of fun. There was sand and sea and sunshine every day. There was swimming and snorkeling and parasailing and lots of staff to boss around. "You there," called Mrs. Crab to the pool attendant. "Get that leaf out of the water and bring us some fresh towels," said Mr. Crab. "Make it snappy." "If only that dog weren't ruining my view," said Mrs. Crab. There they are at the beach. The dog was Walter, digging happily in the sand. You never know where an old bone might be hiding. He detected something under the sand and dug more frantically. Treasure! A bone, and it's a big one. He strained to tug it free and let out an enormous fart. The umbrella that was shading Mr. and Mrs. Crab was blown into the sea. They watched aghast as it was carried away by the undertow. At that moment, Father and Mother arrived with Betty and Billy. Mr. Crab stomped over to Father. "Is this your dog?" "Yes," admitted Father. "That's our Walter." "He shouldn't be allowed at the beach," shouted Mr. Crab. "He blew away our umbrella." "It couldn't have been Walter. It was probably the sea breeze." "The sea breeze doesn't smell like that," said Mrs. Crab. That evening, Mother said, "Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had our own little vacation home right on the beach?" "We can't afford it," said Father, who just bought himself a new set of golf clubs. "Walter eats us out of house and home." Walter farted guiltily. There was a knock at the door. It was the manager of the resort. "We've been getting complaints about that dog of yours. We can't allow him on the beach." "I don't see any rule against dogs in your brochure," said Father. "It's a new rule and it starts today." The manager stomped off. "Sorry, Walter," said Father. "You're banned from the beach." Walter farted sadly. "Never mind, Walter," said Billy. "Let's go for a walk in the village." "Just stay away from the beach," warned Mother. In the quaint little village, lights twinkled in the trees. Everyone was enjoying the gentle breeze and the sweet smells of the tropical night. Walter was enjoying himself, too. Travel broadens a dog's mind, he thought, farting philosophically. The Crabs were sitting nearby at a sidewalk cafe, complaining about their key lime pie. Mrs. Crab counted the problems on her fingers. "It's not big enough, it's not green enough, it's not sweet enough." "Or maybe it's too sweet," said Mr. Crab, smacking his lips. A pelican flapped its wings at Walter, and Walter farted in alarm. The power of Walter's fart blew the meringue off Mr. Crab's pie. It landed in his face and made an awful mess. The Crabs glared at Walter. "That dog is ruining our vacation." I want you guys to see this.
So there's Walter. He farted, and the meringue went in Mr. Krebs' face.
Next morning, Father got a phone call from the chief of police. "I've had serious complaints about your dog," said the chief. "I'm afraid we can't allow him on our streets." Father hung up. "Sorry, Walter. You're banned from the village." "But where can Walter go now?" asked Billy. "He's grounded," said Father. "He stays inside." "That's not a very nice vacation for Walter," said Betty. Walter farted. "Need I say more?" asked Father. When everyone went out to have fun, Walter stayed inside with his nose pressed against the window. "Well," thought Walter, "I'll just have to make the best of it." He sniffed around for something to eat and found a snack of strange-looking tropical fruit. The label said, "Cook thoroughly. Do not eat raw." Since Walter can't read, he ate it anyway. Then he went to snooze in the sunshine pouring through the window. Betty and Billy were building a sandcastle on the beach. "Look," said Betty, pointing out to the sea. "How did that island get there? It wasn't there before." "It must have been underwater," said Billy. "Now that the tide is out, we can get out there. Let's go." They waded out through the shallow water to explore the mysterious island. "This is the sort of place where you find buried treasure," said Billy, beginning to dig. Suddenly, something shiny glittered in the sunlight. "I knew it," yelled Billy, holding up a nickel. "We're rich," yelled Betty. Mr. Krabs sat under the new beach umbrella. "Those nasty children seem to have found something." The crabs waded out to the little island. "Let me help you," said Mr. Crab, pushing Billy aside. Mr. Crab found a rusty old key and waved it triumphantly. "I have a feeling that this will unlock something very important," he said. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, he dug up a door and the key fit perfectly. "Maybe we'll find a whole vacation house," said Betty. Though they dug for hours, they didn't find anything else, and they didn't notice that their island was shrinking. The tide was rising fast, and the waves began to lap at their feet. Betty looked up and gasped. "How did the beach get so far away?" "It's the tide," cried Billy. "We're marooned." "Out of my way," shouted Mr. Crab and leaped into the water. Mrs. Crab dove in after him, followed by Betty and Billy. They swam as hard as they could, but the undertow was too strong. The current swirled them around and dumped them back on their shrinking little island. "Our only hope is to build a raft," said Mr. Crab. Walter woke from his nap with a bad feeling. Betty and Billy must be in trouble. Walter's stomach was rumbling like a volcano from the tropical fruit that should have been cooked thoroughly, but he ignored it and raced to the door. Locked. He stepped back and charged, bursting through the screen and waving and leaving a Walter-shaped hole in the door. See the hole? Walter ran to the beach and saw 4 figures in the distance with the water rising around them. Mr. and Mrs. Crab were launching their raft. Billy was trying to help Betty. All Walter could see was Betty was her little head above the surface and her arms waving frantically. Walter plunged into the surf. Shooting pains twisted him around and flung him back onto the beach. Was it a cramp from swimming too soon after eating? No, it was the tropical fruit that should have been thoroughly cooked. "Walter, save us!" cried Billy. Walter struggled to rise, but the gases produced by the tropical fruit that should have been thoroughly cooked chose this moment to erupt with a terrible force. The tropical fruit fart produced a boom that was heard along the coast for miles. Coconuts blew off trees, and the crabs, clutching their new umbrella, were blown away, all the way to the Sandwich Islands. The waves parted around the little island where Betty and Billy were stranded. Layer upon layer of sand and shells were pushed aside, leaving a pathway across the ocean floor. Betty and Billy ran toward shore. Halfway there, Billy tripped on something jutting from the ocean floor. Walter raced out to help him. "It's a treasure chest!" cried Billy. "Bones," thought Walter, and grabbed the handle with his teeth. He dragged the chest to the beach. Betty and Billy pried it open. Walter was disappointed to see it only contained jewels and gold. With the money from the treasure, Mother and Father bought the vacation home of their dreams. There was sunshine every day. There was golf and snorkeling and parasailing on the gentle sea breezes. Experts said it was the most important treasure uncovered in a century, but Betty and Billy disagreed. "Walter," they said, "you're the greatest treasure of all." And then there's Mr. and Mrs. Crab working at the snack shack. See up at the top, Crab's Snack Shack. All right. Okay, boys and girls. Now, I want to go over these story elements with you. You don't have to put these in your notebook because it's a lot to write. But I'm going to post this under Reading Anchor Charts, and I will also put this on our assignment for this week, okay? First, I want to talk about the setting, and I want you to notice that the setting is two things. It is the time and the location where the story takes place. So when you do the setting, you got to have two parts. Where and when. So the setting is two parts when you tell the setting of a story. The characters are the people or animals who are important to the story. We're not going to worry that much about refrain. I want to talk about the problem. The problem is the conflict or the struggle or issue that the characters are up against. Okay, what's the problem? All right. And then we're going to talk about the solution. Now, the solution is how the characters solve their problem. What do they do to solve their problem? Okay? And again, this is located in Reading Anchor Charts, and it will be listed under your assignment. Okay? Now, after you read Yoon and the Jade Bracelet, you are going to do slides 1 and 2 today. All right? Slide 1 looks like this. And slide 1 is vocabulary. Match the definition to the correct word. Now, you might not know what some of these words mean. Celebrate, courage, disappointment, precious, pride, remind, symbols, and tradition. If you look on Symbaloo, get on our Symbaloo page, and you are going to look in the lower left-hand corner. You can pause now and open up our Symbaloo page and click in the lower left-hand corner, and there's a dictionary right there. And a dictionary is where you can find the meaning of words. If you click on that at the very top, you can type in a word. Let's do celebrate together. I have our Symbaloo page open. And I typed in celebrate in the top, and it says to perform publicly with appropriate rites, to honor, especially by solemn ceremonies, to mark by festivities. All right, let's see. Is it something that represents something else? I don't think that's it. A feeling that one has worth or importance? I don't think that's it. To cause someone to remember? A feeling of sadness, the strength to face danger, to honor a special day or event, having great value, a customary way of doing something that is passed down. When I look here on celebrate on the dictionary, I see it says to honor an occasion or holiday. This says to honor a special day or event. So I'm going to take F and put it up here on celebrate. Okay? So you're going to do this top part. Then you're going to list two details from the text that show it's realistic fiction. Now, you're not using Walter the farting dog. Remember, you're using Yoon and the jade bracelet. Okay? And if you remember, look back, realistic fiction is two things that make the story, shows you the story could happen. All right? And then at the bottom, you're going to look at these 4 things and you're going to number the events in order. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, you're going to number these in order. That's slide 1. Now, slide 2 looks like this. It's a story map. And this story map is where you're going to think about the title, the setting, the characters, the problem, or the solution. Now, I've already filled in the title for you. This is the title you're going to use. You're going to tell the setting, the characters, the problem, and the solution of this book. We're going to use Walter the Farting Dog right now and do this one together, okay? So I'm going to change this to Walter the Farting Dog. Banned from the beach. Now, like we talked about before, the setting is 2 parts. So I like to put a 1 and a 2 there so that I don't forget. And over here to the side, I'm going to write where the story takes place and when the story takes place so that I can remember that those are the questions I'm trying to answer. Well, let me think about Walter the Farting Dog. Where does this story take place? Where? Well, it's the beach. So I'm going to write the beach. When does this story take place? I'd say during the daytime, probably in the summer, because they were talking about a vacation home. So let's put daytime and summer. All right. Now, let's think about the characters in Walter the Farting Dog. Well, Walter, that's a pretty easy one. And what were the kids' names? Betty and Billy. There was a mom and a dad. And Mr. and Mrs. Crab. If you wanted to put there were other people on the beach, you don't have to. We wouldn't have to. Other people on the beach. Okay. Now, these two kind of go together. So what is the problem and how do they solve it? What is the problem of the story? Well, Walter farts too much, right? I think that's a pretty easy one. Walter farts too much. Notice this one has a capital letter and a period. These up here did not need complete sentences. I just listing, okay? Down here needs complete sentences. Now, how did they solve this problem? Well, he still farts too much, but what happened because he farted too much? Walter saved Billy and Betty in the ocean with a huge, I'm going to underline huge, fart. And I'm going to put an exclamation point because I think that's kind of funny. Okay? So you're going to do this story map with your story from the reading book. All right? Let me know if you have any questions.